We're fixing to play something here that gained some of my interest. I was interested in the fact that the time that I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was in 2013, I identified the fact that Albuquerque, New Mexico is in a very, very bad area. First of all, it's on I-40. It's about halfway. It's basically a halfway point. Actually, it's more of a western halfway point. The difference is between, let's say, New York and LA. And plus, it's like a halfway point between Mexico and up towards Canada. So it's kind of right there in the center. You know, they call it the 4 points off from there for a reason, because that's where all four states all come together in one point. But while I was in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, I found Santa Fe to be very, very, at the time, very, very nice, luxurious, lots of art, lots of fine stuff that they make over there. They have art gallery teaching classes just about everywhere in some form or fashion in Santa Fe. Some of them are aimed at 5 or 6, some of them may be 25 or 30, to teach people how to become professional artists, painting artists. Because out there in that area, the rock formation and the way the sun hits it just right, they claim that the color content is like perfect. So a lot of your artists that do want to paint pictures will go out there to learn the disposition points in how to paint and what looks better and what don't look as good, and etc. While I was out there, I took notice also, and I guess it was because of Ed Groth's daughter. Ed Groth had died. That basically created the black hole. It was a more of a museum than it was anything else, towards people going and just kind of sailing around and buying various electrical equipment and stuff like that. But he actually built a religion around his belief, Ed Groth did, pertaining to the black hole. And the reason why he done this was because he had worked for the federal government for about 25 years and retired, and then basically turned on the government because of Los Alamos and what Los Alamos is involved in as far as high-tech nuclear biological stuff. He turned on them, and because of it, they made his life hard. Well, after he died, his daughter tried to take over a little bit where he left off, and she actually got arrested a time or two. And there towards the last, she got involved in police brutality, because at the time, give or take about 10 years ago, Albuquerque, New Mexico was one of the leading contenders of police brutality because of the type of people that they was having to deal with. You keep in mind there's probably about 35 different tribes in that area, and plus the Spanish, plus all the drugs coming out of Mexico into New Mexico, plus you're on I-40 with all the gang activity either in the west or in the east. So Albuquerque and Santa Fe and various towns in New Mexico had to keep a very, very close, tight rein on a great deal of those citizens because of that very reason. The program that you're fixing to listen to, obviously somebody has got to them, and who knows, it may have been somebody like Ed Groth's daughter bringing up the fact about police brutality, but somebody has obviously gotten in there that has dampened their abilities to be able to maintain law and order in that state. So if you don't mind, please listen to this, because it's not just happening in Albuquerque or Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's actually happening all over the nation. I think it started out in California towards snatch and grab, but now the pandemic, and that's exactly what it is, it's a pandemic, has spread all over the nation. And the reason being is because of the failure of the politicians for the past 25 or 30 years that has led us down this endless road of basically selling us out to the degree that just around here locally, I can put my hand on probably, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 counties around here that at one time used to be thriving towns. Some of these towns around here used to have as much as 2 or 3 factories going in them at one time. And they was really, you know, a pillar in the community towards being a lifeline. Today, those same towns are drying up. They're dying. Just as Donald Trump talked about, that you can fly over these factories that one time used to house 400, 500, 600 people, and some of them had more than one shift. Some of them had 3 shifts working in them, doing what they was doing. And today, the way Donald Trump characterized them, they look like tombstones. They was tombstones standing there that at one time used to have a thriving labor industry that now no longer has that. So because of that, it has made us as citizens to this great nation solely dependent upon the government, kind of like how that you would depend upon a drug dealer to supply your drugs. And I actually had a minister explain to me one time that that's exactly what the analogy is about, towards trying to get people susceptible and leaning more towards their livelihoods, towards getting freebies, getting things that they feel like that they're entitled to by the government. That way, once the government decides to take a shift, it can make bigger demands on its own citizens towards controlling them this way, because they have allowed for this to get in this type of shape. It would be the same thing as a drug dealer that wanted to make demands about about his business, that, yeah, I'll sell you this crack, or I'll sell you this 8-ball, but you're going to have to do this, this, and this for me before I ever do it. And it's actually a form of blackmail. The way that our government has failed their people, and because of it, you're fixing to witness a bit of the consequences, of the repercussions because of that of all places, I never would have thought that it would have hit in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because of their stiff neck with their law enforcement. But obviously they must have backed off because of various lawsuits, or maybe it was people like Ed Gross's daughter that brought it to the attention, and because of it, now the cops are scared to do their jobs like they used to there in Albuquerque and Santa Fe, New Mexico. So please listen.
Country values. Choose to be extraordinary. Point University. Making money with Charles Payne on Fox Business.
I try to bring these numbers to life by removing the intimidation factor. After all, the goal for all of us is making money.
Making money with Charles Payne on Fox Business. Invested in you.
Sorry about that.
Welcome back. Time now for our Victims of Crime series. The sporting goods store owner in Albuquerque, New Mexico, is fighting for the safety and well-being of his business. Dwayne Kinsley, owner of Sports Systems, has been experiencing thefts regularly, break-ins, vandalism incidents for over a year now, multiple times a week. Dwayne joins me now to tell us more about what's happening in the store and the action he's taking to stop it. Dwayne, thanks very much for being here. Tell us your story.
Good morning. Yeah, like you said in your intro, we're just seeing a huge uptick of all kinds of scams, burglaries, vandalism, shoplifting going out the roof. Unlike we've seen in anything in my 37 years in business.
Why do you think you're seeing this pick up now? What's behind it? Why?
Well, I think it's because these shoplifters realize there's no consequence. They come in, they can It used to be that shoplifters would try to be sneaky and go to the dressing room, take the sensors off, and try to steal stuff without you knowing it. Now they just boldly walk in, grab stuff, look you right in the face, and walk out the door.
Unbelievable. This is what you were talking about on your campaign trail the whole time in New York, Sheldon.
You have a lot of small businesses just deciding that they're going to close down. It's not worth it. We see the viral videos that'll end up on social media where you're catching someone walking right past the security guard, and the body language, the tone, the words of the person who's walking out as if they're entitled to it. A question for Dwayne: are you seeing them targeting items purposefully, knowing the item, the value of the item, or are they just grabbing whatever they can off of the shelves? And then just the reason why I ask is, here in New York, a lot of the targeting, I mean, they'll go into that Rite Aid at CVS, and they know the value of the Crest White strips and what would trigger the grand larceny charge and how to stay under a particular dollar amount. Are they targeting specific items, knowing the value, or are they just grabbing whatever they can off the shelves?
Well, I think we're seeing both. We're seeing people just come in and grabbing stuff. Then we have more sophisticated thieves that are with the shopping list. So we had some bike thefts. This is break-ins at night. And they would skip over a very expensive bike to get a specific, hey, we want a mountain bike. We don't want a road bike. And so they were stealing, you could tell they were stealing exactly what they had probably come in and pre-shopped us and come in later that night and steal those items.
Yeah, Mark.
Dwayne, it seems like crime is now becoming a sport. Like there are actually...
Crime becoming a sport. Now, if that is not a clear indication of a broken system pertaining to how that at one time it was unheard of to walk in and do businesses this way, to the point that now it's become the norm. If that is not signs of a broken system, I don't know what is. And basically, the wealthy people, the smart people, the rich people, the politicians of this great nation has led us down this endless road of damaging us this way, to the degree that now a police officer, if he's too aggressive, he gets either fired or goes to jail. And now the store owners has to just sit back and let basically these criminals do them any way that they want to do them. Once more, where does the accountability fall at? And I know that a lot of people, they obviously can't see the trees for the forest, because they can't see no further than the actual administration that's either in power right now or the administration before that administration. Okay? Something has brainwashed the American people or bamboozled them to the degree that they cannot see the trees for the forest. And rather than going back 30 plus years ago during the Bush era and the Reagan era to determine where America took its left turn whenever it should have took its right, I guess by and large people don't think that that's any significance. You know why? Because we are a people that pick and choose towards who we're going to hold accountable and who we're not going to hold accountable. And the people that has originally caused this are the people that should be held accountable, but to this day still has not been accountable. Still has not been accountable, going back to the Bushes and the Cheneys and the Reagans and etc. And I'm talking about all of those that was associated with the federal government, including the media at that time. That's not been held accountable. And they have sat back and they have given the store away. They have allowed for all the jobs to be stolen from America. And of course, Walmart and other big retailers took a big part in that, because rather than them buy a local TV down the road that was going to cost $50 more, even though it was putting a lot of people to work, they rather save the consumer $50 and get it from Japan or China or wherever. That way they could beat that price of $50. So this whole scheming situation has now come back and bitten the American people in the tail. Just like I said a while ago, I'm here in Northwest Tennessee, and within about 5 counties, I could go to those certain towns, and at one time used to have 1, 2, possibly 3 little factories going. And they may not have been doing nothing but making plastic parts that went on a seat cover, or they may have been sewing clothes, or they may have been doing this or doing that. But those factories are shut down, and now the building is sitting there hollow. Hollow. And that spread all over America. That ain't just here in Northwest Tennessee. That's by and large across every state. So what has done this? Our system has done this. And the people that was in control of the system has done this. And unless you're willing to put all the dots together, and not just part of the dots together, you'll never clearly see what has went on here, to the degree that it started out being very, very small, but it snowballed and snowballed and snowballed, and now it's where it is today, towards people walking in and doing what they're doing to consumers, because either A, they don't care, or B, they can't do no better for themselves, and they feel the same way as I did, is that the wealthy people, the smart people, the conglomerates of this great nation has now basically stabbed their own citizens in the back. And now, if the citizens are going to have anything in life, they're going to have to basically be dishonest or be like a cold-hearted criminal towards just walking in and stealing something. So you really can't blame it all on the criminal. Now, do I agree that that is right to be able to go in there and steal like that? No, it ain't right. No, it ain't right, because the Bible teaches it ain't right. Thou shalt not steal. It ain't a bit more right than daylight is from dark. But at the same time, I can see both sides of the perspective of how things used to be towards having all them manufacturing jobs around here, so that people at the end of the week could have money, to the point that now they don't have that money. They have to rely upon the government to have a little bit of money. And to see the inflation go out of sight the way that it has over here in America has just added that much more insult to misery, pretending to now people are being bold that will probably even get bolder. And of all the places to see this happening in Albuquerque or Santa Fe or anywhere in New Mexico, I'm thinking to myself, my God, obviously something must have shattered or disrupted the police force in New Mexico, because at one time they used to be the #1 state towards police brutality, because that was the only way that they could control the thugs and the barbarians that was in that area that had been drugged out and done already lost their minds and you know, come from either the West Coast or the East Coast, or come from Mexico or wherever. That was the only way that they could control law and order in their city, was to be brutal or brutaler than the brutal people that was committing the crimes. Well, now, because of the lobbyists and because of your lawyers and because of various groups like Mr. Ed Growth, that created the black hole, these people has gotten in there, and now they have damaged their persona in how that they projected their law and order in that area. And now the consumers are paying for it. It all goes back to a broken system. And whenever you have a country that has taken this far of a left turn compared to the right turn that they should have taken, all it does is validate my story again and again towards me getting on social media platform and telling people where America went wrong. Where America went wrong. And people that I make mention from time to time, I ain't going to mention them right now because there ain't no need of it, but I could go down a long list here within Obion and Weakley County. These people are going to be held accountable for this. They don't think that they will be. They think that they're only going to be held accountable for their personalized sins that they either have committed or those that they, didn't do, that they should have done, etc., etc. They think that it's going to be just a small, minute accountability issues pertaining to these people, and I got news for them. They're going to be held to the fullest extent of the law, God's law, pertaining to what went on here, that they didn't want Dennis James Jackson, the individual that's talking to you behind the camera right now, they did not want that to pursue. They did not want that to take a toehold. They did not want that ministry to have any dominion over their lives. These people purposely wanted to choose an ungoverned country as well as an ungoverned church, and this is the response from it. I'm not saying that all people that work in government have failed the American people. I'm not saying that all the churches are corrupt and have failed their own citizenship or their own brotherlyhood and sisterlyhood that they were supposed to have been mandating towards being the watchman on the wall. But I will say this, the majority of them have. The majority of them have. And because to this day I still can't rally the people pertaining to these subject matters, is that much more proof in the pudding that the things that I'm talking about is, in fact, authentically true. And you know what's puzzling to me is that whenever I see my country, my great nation, falling apart this way, regardless whether it's over here in this state or over here in this state, or over here pertaining to these issues, or over here in those issues, as I'm seeing my great nation basically being torn apart in all these events, I keep questioning myself, okay, what's next? What's next? What's the next thing that we're going to have to witness or see that could actually be in our own back door, coming near a neighborhood near you, just like the Walmart slogan? What's going to be the next thing that we're all going to have to either take a back seat to, or we're going to have to compromise towards, or we're going to have to just let the thugs and the unfortunate people basically do whatever that they want to do, and there's not going to be no consequences towards it. Whenever you have a society, whenever you have a system that is broken this badly, that's whenever I start looking at the system in general and saying to myself, could it actually get so bad to where your law enforcement agencies was no longer even conducting law enforcement for their citizens, to the degree that they just as well open up their cells on all their prisons and their jail cells and their county cells and just release all the prisoners, all the bad people out into the rest of society? Has it reached that point that's what we're going to be looking for on the next level of uncertainty, the next level of damages? I mean, it's almost reached a point right now that it's almost in the phase of a civil war. And it ain't necessarily a controlled civil war like it was back during the Civil War whenever you had the North against the South. But basically, it's a civil war against the survivalist of the unfortunate taken from the fortunate. And it's only growing in proportionally manners towards getting worse every day. Like I said, it started out in California. TV has a big thing to do with this. Hollywood, that has brainwashed so many people, has a big thing to do with this. But whenever we have all this exposure to the degree that now it puts ideals in people's heads, not only on the East Coast, but also in the middle of the nation, to where, hey, we can snatch and grab and do whatever we want to do, and they ain't going to do nothing about it. And as long as we keep it under $499, it ain't considered a felony. These unfortunate people ain't stupid. They know what they can do And what they can't do, of course, some of them don't care because they probably already got federal rap sheets. But whenever I make statements that this government has failed its own people by the brokenness of this system, because it has always been taught to me that nobody can be held accountable towards paying for a crime twice of it being the same crime. And it has reached a point that whenever people does commit a crime, let's say they commit a crime ignorantly. Let's say they do something out of a dare. And they break into a department store and they get caught. And the next thing you know, they go to jail. And they have a rap sheet. Well, whenever they get out of jail, they're supposed to have paid their crime to society, right? But that ain't the way it works. You know why? Because now all those businesses and society in general has access to those people's files. And whenever they go through the filing, you can't tell me that they do not pick and choose towards who they're going to hire and who they're not going to hire, because number one, that is their right, and number two, nobody wants to hire somebody with a bad rap sheet. So in essence, that person that did do that crime and paid their crime according to the legal courts now is subject to being punished the rest of their lives because they have committed a crime because of the good old computer. Artificial intelligence has bitten the American people in the rear end in this degree, and they're obviously either too naive to see it or they just don't care. Well, whenever enough department stores gets robbed and enough people goes out of business, and the people by and large is squandering down here towards where we're going to get our next where are we going to get our next this, or where are we going to get our next that, because basically all the businesses is packed up and moved out of America because of it, then they'll start saying, wow, we may have should have listened to that guy back then that was trying to point all these things out. We may should have listened to Donald Trump whenever he got to talking about all these factories that was nothing more than tombstones or headstones that you fly over in small aircraft, and you see one town after another town after another town with one empty building after another empty building after another empty building, knowing good and well what's happened here. The American people have been sold out. They got the cart in front of the horse. And all of a sudden, it become appealing to retail stores like Walmart and Kmart and other big retail stores towards, wow, why should we settle for this TV that we know is going to cost $50 to $75 more than if we go to Japan or China or South America or Mexico and get the same quality of TV, or that's what they claim. I don't think the quality is near as good. That now we can sell the same TV to the same customer, and they're going to be happier because now they're going to not have to pay the extra $50 or $75. Do you see where America has went backwards? Do you see where America has taken a left turn versus a right whenever it comes to the normalcy of the way that America used to run, and what made America a great nation to begin with was our labor, was our ingenuity skills toward being able to create stuff. I mean, we talk about China. We want to say China was a thief. China stole this. China stole that. Well, really and truly, we have nobody to blame. We can't even keep things under wrap in the White House pertaining to classified material that says top secret on it, much less all the rest of the stuff going on. And you wonder what's happened to America? It's sad. It's sad that so many people, and I'm supposed to be somebody with a mental challenge. I'm supposed to be somebody psychologically, emotionally, chemically imbalanced, according to the people, the officials over in Kenton, Tennessee, the townsmen in the big city of Kenton, Tennessee, the white squirrel capital of the world. I'm supposed to be somebody that's got a freaking loose screw. A crackpot. Well, it's a funny thing to me that the crackpot can sit here and watch TV shows like this and make comments about all these things, and the crackpot can bring out the truth, but yet no, nobody wants to hear the truth about the truth. You know why? Because society over here has become so ingrained towards being lied to that they rather hear a lie than they would the truth. Society over here has settled for aftermarket and counterfeit stuff, artificial stuff, artificial sweetener, artificial this, and now they become addicted to it to the point that they don't really want the real deal. They like it this way. Well, once more, what did the dope dealer do? The dope dealer got us addicted to the dope. The government got us addicted to relying upon the government. Oh, we're entitled to that check. Oh, we're entitled to this. We're entitled to that. The things that people get today, whenever I was growing up as a teenager, would not have even been heard of. And granted, some of the stuff that's out there now today that wasn't out there whenever I was growing up as a teenager needed to be out there whenever I was a teenager. Especially whenever it comes to women being abused and women having children and women having to choose between either staying in a violent relationship versus going out here on her own and taking care of her children because of the person that she was living with or made a commitment to absolutely was just abusing her, using her as a slave, a sex slave or whatever. I mean, I wish that they had some of the policies in place today that they had back then, because if they did, I feel like that my mother would have made a decision towards going ahead and leaving the maniac that she was staying with at the time, which was my dad. But because she had 4 mouths to feed, she was caught in between the middle to the degree that it was damned if you do and damned if you don't, that if she went out here on her own, she was basically not only going to starve herself, but starve her children too as well. So a lot of these policies that they put in place, I'm glad that they have. But just because you get a few entitlements don't mean that you're supposed to get them all. But at the same time, I can see where America in general has sold the store, given the store away. And now we solely are relying upon Japan and China and South America and Mexico and all these other slave, not sex slaves, but sweat slave labor industries that's basically barely paying some of their people $2 or $3 an hour, if that. Maybe they're only getting paid, who knows, a high pertaining to heroin or cocaine or whatever. But we have been sold out because we lost our defenses. Why did we lose our defenses? Is because we took the bait. We took the bait. We took the bait going back 30 plus years ago. And we have allowed for this to occur to the degree that now we're seeing what we're seeing, that is only escalating and getting worse. There's no doubt that there's bad cops. There's bad, brutal cops in the world. We've seen that down in Memphis, Tennessee, back about a month ago, whenever 5 police officers or 6 police officers took on a beating to a gentleman that didn't deserve that no more than a man on the moon. There's bad people in all kinds of industries and all kinds of businesses. We all know that, just like there's bad churches, bad people that run churches, bad people that run the government. But whenever you have enough of the bad and it continues to foster and get worse and worse and worse and worse, it's like, where is the ending of this going to be? Is the ending going to be basically whenever all our agencies basically open up the prison cells and say, go get them. Have at it. Now it turns into a sport. Is that where we're going with society here in America? I mean, they talk about socialism. They talk about communism. They talk about globalism, okay? But they're really not talking about what actually has occurred. But yet, no, you got people like the Bushes and the Cheneys and all these other people that got big, fat bank accounts. And we're talking some of them worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars that nobody has asked them for a penny back. And yet, no, we can't even get the vice president to walk up to the Napoleon and talk about the things that happened that led to January the 6th in front of Congress, because he feels like that he is exempt, that he is entitled to clamp up his mouth, I guess, towards pleading the fifth degree, thinking that whatever that he says, he's going to be subjected to basically incriminating himself over. I got news for people. Whenever this thing gets so far out of hand that it's nothing but a bloodbath over here, they're going to wish that they did listen to people like us. They're going to wish that they did take the time to say, you know what, Mr. Pence, we don't care what you think. You're going to get up there under oath and you're going to tell us what went on, how it went on, why it went on, where it went on, etc., because we, the people, deserve it and demand it. Now, as long as we sit idly by and don't make those demands, we're steadily going to get walked on, and we're steadily going to be used and abused and basically treated like nothing but a second-class whore towards America being sold out. And what did Donald Trump say? That America was for sale? America's been for sale, as far as I'm concerned, going all the way back to the assassination of Kennedy. We have lost our grip. And all of a sudden, we started running things on a global level towards opening up the doors with NAFTA and all this other stuff that was supposed to be embarked upon free trade, but obviously nobody cared nothing about the fair trade. And the reason why we know this is because proof is in the pudding, because you can drive around to each of these little old country towns that at one time used to have 2 or 3 or 4 factories that no longer has nothing. They're drying up. They're dying. People are relying upon social services for their survival. Just like that drug dealer that got that young girl hooked on heroin or cocaine. And now, oh yeah, the drug dealer, he'll sell the cocaine, providing that she gives him a blowjob first. Now, if that's not blackmail, I will kiss your tail and give you 30 minutes to draw up a crowd. Because that's exactly what is going on here. And I'm just afraid, before it's all said and done with, what are the people going to do whenever the government can no longer pay the tab? What are they going to do? Are they going to get out here and start growing crops? Are they going to go back to the labor force and actually start working like they did back whenever I was a kid growing up? You wonder how come the obesity problem is so bad in America? Well, that's one of them. You got people that want to sit around and lounge around and don't work. They don't get off their tail to be exhilarant, to do anything, to work anything off. And I ain't talking about people my age or people a little bit below my age. I'm talking about young children right now. Children that are 8, 9, 10 years old. The obesity problem in these schools has went beyond anything imaginable that I thought that I would ever experience or see growing up. Because whenever we all growed up, we was poor. We was all skinny because we was barely getting by. We didn't have time to sit around and not do nothing. We stayed busy doing something. If it wasn't nothing but walking down to the grocery store, collecting Coke bottles on the side of the roads. That way, when we got down to the grocery store, we had enough Coke bottles that we could get our own pop, get our own Coke, no drink. You think kids today are going to do that? No. What are they going to do? They're going to do just like what we're seeing right there. They're going to walk into these merchant stores and they're going to make themselves at home. That's exactly what they're going to do. They're not going to go to work. Why? Because now they've become adjusted to the system. In all the freebies, they feel like that they're entitled to it. They're turning it into a sport, just like the individual just got through saying.
There was a TikTok challenge a few months ago where it was encouraging people to go out and steal Kias and Hyundais. absolutely insane if you look at it from that standpoint.
Surprised.
But this is also, there's a trend that's kind of happening right now where you're starting to see businesses and even some higher income individuals opt for private security and private protection. So we're starting to see that trend. And if you think about that trend, what that means is that's actually disadvantaging lower income, middle class people and businesses who the left claims they are here to fight for. What do you make of that?
Well, you know, we're really trying to advocate for a law that's in our legislature right now that would make it so the accumulated shoplifting they do from one store to the next would accumulate over time, and then they could become a felony. But right now, it's $500. So they come in and steal $400 from me, $400 from the next place. They go on and on all day, and then they come back and do the exact same tour the next day.
Wow.
So there's no consequence. They walk in. But at Sports Systems, what we're doing is stopping these people. So we're actually apprehending them. And we had 4 instances last week. We caught them all.
Well, good for you, Dwayne. We'll be watching. Thanks very much for joining us this morning. Dwayne.
So is the answer to have more store police? Is the answer towards putting bars and et cetera on your windows to make sure that you keep the criminals out? Is that the real answer? That's only a band-aid to the answer. The real answer is, first of all, holding the people accountable that took us down this endless road of doom and gloom. And the real answer is for the American people and the American politicians to have ideals to put back to where we can become a thriving, working, self-dependent nation once more again, without having to rely upon China to make all our 92% of all our medical supplies and all our drugs coming over here pertaining to the drug manufacturer. You know, why should we have to depend upon all the TVs coming from Japan? Why should we have to depend upon manufacturers being made cars and trucks somewhere else? Everything is out of balance. It's out of proportion. And that's the reason why I say that the American politicians got the cart in front of the horse towards trying to keep up in competing with the global world that now has sacrificed their own citizens towards. And it's awful. Yeah, you can put bars on your doors. Yeah, you can hire more security. But is that truly going to be the answer? Or is that just the band-aid to the answer? This thing is growing proportionally out of control. And it's been out of control for quite some time. It's just now, because of COVID, COVID has accelerated everything. It's accelerated towards people looking at other people's health issues. It's accelerated towards looking at this, accelerated towards looking at that. And this is just another acceleration that COVID has helped people to look at, to say, wow, how come this is going on in America, to where, you know, back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, if stuff like this was to be happening, my God, they'd have probably, I ain't going to go as far as to say that they'd have went ahead and hung them right there in the store, but they darn sure wouldn't have sit there and let them do it and get by with it. But at the same time, I can look at both sides of the perspective towards being a spectator and say, well, you know what? It was the American consumer, the smart person, the wealthy person, that depended upon their politicians to lead them down the right road, that has obviously led them down the wrong road. But yet now we don't want to take the Bushes and the Cheneys and people like that and go get a nickel from them and hold them accountable. If anything, we want to reward them for their bad behavior. Same thing what they done down there in Waco. They rewarded the ATF and the FBI for killing almost 70 people's lives in handling that situation down there, towards purposely entrapping them people by selling them military-style guns. I've never seen a society that was so upside down, or a bunch of cops that sat around while children was being killed and didn't have the nerve of going on into the classroom and trying to stop the guy that had the gun that was doing it. I've never seen society so, it's regurgitating upon to itself. And I guarantee you the citizens in Albuquerque, New Mexico and Santa Fe, New Mexico, that this little ordeal was over with right here, I guarantee you, before it's over with, they're going to regret that they listened to people like Ed Grote's daughter that made such of a big splash in Albuquerque pertaining to police brutality. They're going to wish like hell that they never did pay any attention to people like her that wanted to bring out the bad pertaining to a good cop. Because there's no doubt good cops has to use bad tactics in overcoming the criminal that's using bad ethics. You know, I wish that I could walk up to any criminal that's dead set that wants to commit a crime and say, "Now you can't do that," and them listen to me and they're going to walk away. Do you really think that's going to happen? Somebody in the middle of a bank robbery, somebody in the middle of raping somebody, somebody in the middle of wanting to steal or kidnap somebody. You think somebody like me is going to be able to walk up to him and say, "Well, I wish you wouldn't do that," and like all of a sudden they're going to listen to me? You're dreaming. You're in a fantasy world if you're thinking that that's going to be the case. There's no doubt police brutality does exist. There's no doubt that there's bad cops. Those cops need to be weaned out. Those cops need to be set aside and punished for their crimes, regardless whether it was George Floyd or whoever. And God only knows the people that's been abused that never was reported to being abused. Why? Because nobody had a voice to be abused at that time. Well, now they got a voice. But now they're going just as far to the far left as they are to the far right. Towards now, we're seeing it backfire on their own citizenship pertaining to all this. And like I said, yeah, you can hire more police officers to protect your goods. You can put bars and everything else on your windows. But that's only a temporary Band-Aid. You're still not getting to the original origin of where we took a left turn versus a right. And people want to say, "Well, you're a religious fanatic, Juby. You're a religious fanatic." My religious aspect is only part of it. Is only part towards keeping things in proper check and form. But whenever you have a society that is playing games with God, that go to church every Sunday, but they have punishable lifestyles towards living with each other and swapping bedroom suits with each other and stealing and conniving and cheating and lying, you've got a mess. You no longer have a true godly church. Now you have a church that claims to be a church. That even Jesus said that once it reaches that level with salt, what good is it other than to be trampled down by the foot of man? Because obviously it has lost its potency. It is no longer doing what it was originally supposed to have done. Once more, the American people have gotten adapted to aftermarket this, generic this, I can see where we have been contaminated. And I know other people that listen to this, of me putting out these type of social media platform views about my ideals, I know that they can see it too. Now, I don't know if they feel like me, that it ain't going to do no good, that they're just going to ridicule you and step all over you, and you're not going to gain no popularity with your message, or what the deal is towards them not getting into the same group or the same frame of mind towards trying to get a toehold on all this. But I guarantee you, if we do not, first of all, it's going to get worse. Second of all, it's going to get to the point that it will basically turn into a civil war. And I'm just wondering what the last finale is going to be. Is it going to be the finale whenever all the law enforcement agencies says, "Well, you know what? We can't feed them. We can't take care of them. Open up your jail cells and turn them out against their own people." And don't say that it can't happen. You know, the American people didn't think in 1929 that their stock market would crash. The American people didn't think that they was going to have to go through what they went through just to be able to fight for their own independence pertaining to the Revolutionary War. The American people didn't think that they would go to war with their own people pertaining to their own ideologies being so screwed up that they basically was killing one another over here in their own civil war. Don't tell me that it can't happen. There was a time, if you'd have told me that a bunch of people was going to basically hijack an airplane and turn it into a missile and drive it off into a building somewhere and kill almost 3,000 people in one day, I would have looked at you and said, you're crazy. There's no way that's going to happen. But you know what? It did. It did. We're seeing our children being basically brainwashed in ideologies that we don't agree with. Because why? Because they're susceptible to this type of influence. And because of the liberal laws, we're not allowed to speak up about it. We're not only supposed to sit back and allow for the gays and the lesbians and the LGBTQ community to do what they want to do, but we have to sit back and allow for it to basically smear it all into our face to the degree that either we accept it ourselves or turn into the very thing that they are. Can't you see what's happening here? I know I can. I don't have no desire of wanting to be gay. If somebody wants to be gay, that's their business. But it ain't right for you to push your agenda off onto me. And then you tell me that I don't have a right to preach the gospel because the gospel preaches against that type of activity. You're telling me that I don't have a right to do what I need to do or feel like that I want to do or led to do, passionate to do, but yet no, you can get out here and flaunt yourself in front of me and you can contaminate me to the point that now your lifestyle becomes enticing to me. Whenever bad starts winning over the good towards corrupting the good, then you have things out of balance, and then is whenever you start seeing the Heavenly Father basically turn his back up onto that society and look at Lucifer and say, sick 'em. And he's sicking them right now in areas like you would not believe. Not just with storms, not just with weather events, not just with supernatural forces that come out of Mother Nature, but you're seeing it now coming out of the woodwork everywhere. Look at your illegal immigrants that's basically inundating our borders. Look at how the jobs has been stolen. Look at how the churches has compromised. Look at how now the parents, the true godly parents, is no longer in control of their own children because now their children has to be susceptible to all these type of influences out there. But yet now somebody like me, they're still wanting to put me on a pedestal towards me being a crackpot. That began right over here in less than 7 or 8 miles from my house in my mother's hometown called Kenton, Tennessee. What's the old saying? If you give an inch, they'll take a mile. What's the old saying? That it wasn't the fox that necessarily spoiled the grapes, but it was the small fox, the one that could get into the vineyard and start chewing and gnawing on little stuff. And the next thing you know, the little bites turn into big bites, and enough of the little bites start killing the vineyard. The whole vineyard died because we allowed for the little fox to come in. Oh, a little bit of sin ain't going to hurt. Oh, a little bit of this ain't going to hurt. A little bit of that ain't going to hurt. Well, now those same people that were saying that now are having to defend themselves. And it's not just in Albuquerque. It's not just in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's not just in one particular area. It's across the board. It's across the board. And it's out of control. It's turned into a runaway train. And unless people are willing to conform and group together, it's only going to get worse. Coming near, I promise you, near a neighborhood near you. You know, we just recently seen another school shooting. They've had 67, 68 shootings so far this year. And this is what? February the 15th or 16th? I think it's the 16th. February the 16th. Well, 30 days plus half of a month should be 45. And that's a mass shooting every day. A mass shooting has to have 3 or 4 plus people either be killed or injured or something like that. They got some sort of a formula to it towards categorizing it, towards it being a mass shooting. But that ain't counting all the other individual shootings. That ain't counting all the suicides out there with guns. That ain't counting all the people that got shot at that was fortunate enough that they escaped any type of injury. This is out of control. And unless we get government officials in there that are willing to put it where it needs to be put towards calling it like it needs to be called, it's only going to drastically get worse. I realize that the President of the United States, Joe Biden, got on national TV after the shooting up in Michigan, MSU, or whatever it's called, college up there, the university up there, said that it has to stop. It has to stop. Well, you know, you can get up there and say that every time that there's a mass shooting that winds up on 6 o'clock news. It has to stop. It has to stop. But you're still not getting to the core of the origin. You're still not breaking ice whenever it comes towards how we going to stop it. What created it to begin with? And if you're not willing to go back to the core of origin, if you can't see the trees for the forest, if all you can see is the immediate administration that you're in, that tells me that you have been indoctrinated. You have been brainwashed. And it also tells me that you are at the principle of doom. And the bad thing about it, it's one thing to doom yourself. It's one thing to doom your immediate people that's around you. But whenever you start dooming the lives of the innocent, that's whenever the Heavenly Father steps in. And if you don't think that He will, you're only deceiving yourself. Just as Billy Graham said back in the early 90s, that if God didn't come back and start judging America for the atrocities that America was committing, that God was going to have to go back and apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah. I promise you, God is not going to apologize to Sodom and Gomorrah no more than He's going to apologize to us. Because once we get this far out of hand, we basically got it coming, just like they had it coming. And whenever you get to the point that you can no longer control yourselves, that's whenever God will step in controlling you. And if you can't be controlled that way, then He'll just eliminate you. Just like the Bible talks about, that He will come back and destroy those who are destroying the planet. You don't realize that God is God. He is the maker of all things. And He's not going to sit back and allow for His creation to become this deformed to the point that now it's affecting everybody's lives. Little Johnny, little Sally, the one that had a good, decent mother and father, has to go to school, and all of a sudden little Johnny wants to become a girl, and little Sally wants to become a little Johnny. And they want to have whatever you call them, become a drag queen, the LGBTQ community. Like I said, it's one thing for them to do what they're doing and stay in their corner. But whenever it comes to the degree that now you're going to come at me and you're going to sue me over a hate crime because I'm telling you what the King James Version Bible says, you're going to sue me because of me being influential like you're influential, then we got a problem. We have an imbalance. And whenever we have an imbalance, that's whenever the Father steps in. And if He don't step in one way by basically turning His back and letting the wicked turn up onto the wicked, basically giving us over to a reprobate mind and let us believe a lie to be damned, if He don't do it that way, He'll do it Himself by turning on to the society and basically bringing us or turning this thing into great tribulation. And I keep continually saying that again and again and again. I'm sorry for the electricity going out. Electricity went out. Let me try to turn it back on again now. It went out temporarily once more. Electrical disturbances. But if we're not man enough to man our own boat, that's whenever God steps in and he'll man it for us.
Few seconds. Does your software
That's whenever the Heavenly Father will step in and he'll man it for us.
The debt trajectory is unsustainable. And you know, you could then look at, well, what's happening to the carrying cost of, you know, the net interest payments of servicing this debt. It doesn't get better after 2053. We'll put it that way under current law. And so the fiscal trajectory is unsustainable.
That was Congressional Budget Office Director Philip Swaygle warning that the U.S. is on track to nearly double its loans over the next decade. The Congressional Budget Office released its 10-year outlook, projecting that the nation will add $19 trillion to the national debt in that time. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says that there are no plans for any default, that the debt ceiling will be raised in June, but he's looking for some kind of agreement on spending cuts in the face of all of this. Joining the Hot Topics all morning long this morning, Lee Zeldin, Mark Tepper, and joining us for the rest of the hour, the Faulkner Focus host, Outnumbered co-host, and the author of Faith Still Moves Mountains, Harris Faulkner is here.
Now the electricity went out again. Oh man, every time it does that, my system has to reboot, and it takes like 5 minutes for it to reboot itself. Oh man, that messed me up. But that's another issue pertaining to national debt. Whenever it becomes unself-sustainable, reality has to affect you some way or another towards understanding that now you have crossed the threshold to the point of no return. And until we have politicians that's willing to stand up and recognize that and do something about that, once more, you're only whistling Dixie. And I think the American people, or at least some of us, is tired of politicians promising us everything and us getting absolutely nothing in return. It's basically nothing more than a bold-faced lie by getting up there and telling the American people that our national debt is in control and we are going to be able to defeat it by cutting this and cutting this program and doing this and doing that, knowing good and well that you're only lying to yourself and lying to the American people. It's unbelievable in the positioning that we are in right now. And until people are willing to step up and smell the coffee, smell the very stuff that people have been scooping out for us to walk in, the rich are going to get richer. The working class is going to maintain the present load that they're having to be out on. And of course, the poor class continues to be poor or struggles, even those that are justifiably disabled or have justifiably went throughout their lives and now they deserve their retirement, that those people now are struggling from day to day just to be able to survive. And our system was not originally created this way. But certain people have allowed for the fox to get in the hen house to try to guard the hens in the chicken house, and now we're realizing that we have been sabotaged. We have been lied to. We have been manipulated. Thanks again for listening. Looks like it's trying to come up a little cloud again. A while ago, we had some storms come up through here. I don't think none of us received any bad damage. At times, it was pretty intense towards the lightning and the thunder that went on, which is very, very unusual for February to witness and see this type of activity. But once more, when Mother Nature is out of whack, as much as the citizens down here on the planet is out of whack, what else can you expect? Just like the Bible talks about, great sorrows will fall upon the society in the last days. And that's exactly where we are. Good luck to each and every one of us. I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your concerns in sharing and caring. I want to say good luck to each and every one of us. God bless America. God bless our troops. God bless our endeavors towards where we go from here. And thanks again, and shalom.